from hillbilly crime. You can't hide from hillbilly crime. You may not know that there's a crew in town. The head hillbillies are making their rounds. Small town whispers loud and clear. The sheriff shot the judge in his chambers chair. Sheriff got a secret he won't keep. Judge shot dead in his disbelief. A lot of people have some stories to tell. Dark pass away, get the sound of a shotgun shell. All the secrets spill on down. Voices loud in this old town. From the courthouse to the ground. Rumors fly and they can't be bound. Neighbors hide behind their blinds. Whisper tales of troubled minds. Skeletons covering the mountainside. A treacherous reality in the pine. Winter reveals the hidden lies. Moonlight couldn't mask the cries. Shadows caught in sunlit skies. There's no cover, no disguise. All the secrets spill on down. Voices loud in this old town. From the courthouse to the ground. Rumors fly and they can't be found. Winter reveals the hidden lie. Moonlight could mask their cries. Shadows caught in sunlit skies. There's no cover, no disguise. All the secrets spill on down. Voices loud in this old town. From the courthouse to the ground. Rumors fly and they can't be found.
I didn't have my mic on. I'm sorry. Hello, my hillbillies. We've got the Queen Bee with us this evening, Sweet Tater.
Yeah, I'm right here.
How's she a doing?
I'm a doing great.
Well, good. Good.
I've had a great Monday and Tuesday and Wednesdays today.
Well,
I've just done so much.
yeah. Well, I've got my mic. See, I got this big fancy mic here.
Yeah, I see that.
And you have to have it turned on.
Ooh.
And if it's not all lit up and bright with all these colors,
It's pretty. Got them neat colors.
it ought to be for as much money as what it cost.
Oh,
But-
now don't be talking
Now-
money to me.
Well, one of these days, I couldn't afford the big boy. Oh, I want the big boy. All the real professional YouTubers got the big boys.
Well, I guess I'll have to get me a big boy.
Yeah, they got the big boy mics. One of these days, we will graduate to have a big boy mic too.
Yeah, we'll be stars.
What are you doing there, Sweet Tater? You're all tied up.
I'm a putting me on a heating pad.
So
You know it's gonna snow.
you said your back was a hurting you.
But I was being funny, you see. You said you asked what them coaches were talking about, and that's what I thought they were talking about. My back's hurting.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood.
My
I
back's
got you.
not hurting. I got my support bra on for my back, and I got my, what's that thing you put around your middle?
Girdle. You got your
Well, it's not a girdle, it's that back brace that they wear when they're lifting stuff.
Oh.
Well, I got mine on there tight. Buddy, and my back has felt good all day.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
I am glad. I'm glad. So tonight we had another case. I don't know if any of you guys know who this guy is, but he's an actor, and we are going to look. What happens when somebody makes an accusation and then takes it back, recants it, or says that it's not true, that it wasn't true, or whatever.
Yeah.
How does that affect people going forward? People's lives are just devastated after something like that. I'm gonna I'm gonna give us an intro into this case, and we're gonna look at it. So, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Hillbilly Crime. If you are new here, you're home now, honey. Black sheep are welcome always. Now, before we get started, a little quick show maintenance, because this channel runs on community. Tonight's live chat goal is 10 $5 super chats, memberships, or gift memberships. If you're able to support, it keeps this show independent and on the air. If you can't, being here, listening, and participating respectfully matters just as much. Now, new members, don't be shy. Say hello in the chat. Make yourself right at home. This is a place for discussion, not dogpiling. Questions are welcome. Opinions are welcome. Disrespect is not. Period. All right. Now, who is Timothy Busfield? Let me pull him up, and we will take a look at this fella. Now, here is one picture of him there. And y'all know who she is. Wasn't she on Little House of the Prairie or something like that? What was she on when she was a kid? Do y'all remember?
I think that's what she was on, was Little House.
Now, tonight we're talking about Timothy Busfield, this fella right here. And before we ever get into accusations, we need to understand who he even is. So, Timothy Busfield is a longtime actor, director, and producer. Many people know him from television roles in the 1980s and 90s, including 30-something, The West Wing, and other major network productions. More recently, he's worked behind the camera as a director and a producer. He is married to actress Melissa Gilbert. That's her name.
Yeah.
Who many people know from Little House on the Prairie. I was right. So they've been married for several years, and both have long public careers in the entertainment industry. Now, that public profile is important. We're going to mute Zelmy. I don't know what she's doing. I'm sorry. Here. All right. So, that public profile is important because when accusations surface against someone with name recognition, the impact is immediate and it's widespread, irreversible, regardless of the outcome. So, what are the accusations and who is making them? So let's talk about what he is accused of, and just as importantly, who is making the accusations. So Timothy Busfield is facing criminal charges in New Mexico related to alleged conduct involving minor children connected to a television production. Now, the accusations were brought forward by the state based on statements reportedly made by children and information presented through adults and professionals. Because this case involves minors, there are limits on what can publicly be disclosed, and that's appropriate. Names are protected, certain details are sealed, and some evidence may never be public at all. Now, what we can say is this: these are allegations, not convictions. Charges are claims made by the state, they are not proof, and that distinction matters for everyone involved. Now, important conversation. False allegations and truth. We also need to talk about something uncomfortable but very necessary. When false allegations are made against anyone, the consequences are devastating. Careers are destroyed, families are torn apart, reputations never fully recover, even if the person is later cleared. At the same time, false allegations do exist, and real abuse also exists. Courts exist precisely because emotions, assumptions, and headlines are not evidence. Now, that's why we don't declare guilt. We've seen too many times how people can be set up. We've seen how prosecutors and police can get tunnel vision and head down the wrong path. We see it. We see how innocent people can be accused. That's why we don't, we try not to anyway. It's hard. When somebody is accused, it feels like, well, where there's smoke, there's fire. But we really have to fight that temptation to do that, or at least I do. I have to follow or try to follow the process because truth matters, evidence matters, and lies, if they exist, eventually surface under scrutiny. But determining that is the court's job, not the internet's. True. Hey, how is everybody? Look here, Marnie, one of our mods that we are very, very appreciative of. Thank you, Marnie, for being here as always. I watched Little House on the Prairie all the time growing up. Second Beach Gal, she's so funny. God love Tater. She's still toting around down there somewhere. Look. There she is.
I was popping me some corn.
Oh, you was popping you some popcorn.
Yeah.
All right, Linda Lane, Melissa Gilbert, Little House on the Prairie. Yeah, Miss Marnie. Allegedly, a 16-year-old girl has also accused him of something as well. She played Laura Ingalls. Linda Lane, you're innocent until proved guilty in a quarter law. A quarter law. Now the time that goes the other way around. You're guilty until someone proves you're innocent. Don't work that way in a court of law. I know. Absolutely, absolutely. Miss Pam, thank you, thank you, thank you. Miss Paula McCormick, bless you. Thank you, Miss Paula. Thank Miss Paula if you got your gift membership. Bless you, bless you. All right. And so we're going to look at what evidence they've had so far. We're going to watch a couple videos too that they've had out. They've had a hearing. Let's take that picture down and we'll look at another one that they had. So this is the most shocking one to me. It's just shocking to see him in orange, in a jail garb, sitting there at, in the courtroom. So what evidence has been discussed so far? Well, in court, both sides referenced different statements made at different times. The defense has cited audio recordings where a child allegedly denied abuse at one point in time. The prosecution points to later statements that they say support charges. That's why you'll hear the phrase conflicting statements, because that's exactly what the judge acknowledged exists at this stage. So importantly, no jury has heard this case, no verdict has been reached, and much of the evidence discussed is being summarized by attorneys, not ruled on. So what we're about to watch, so we're kind of just guide you into it. Tonight, we're going to watch portions of the public hearings together. As we watch, here's what to pay attention to. What the judge says, not what commentators say. What is claimed versus what is proven. How the court treats conflicting accounts, and what decisions are procedural, not conclusions. This hearing is not a trial. It's about whether the case moves forward, under what conditions, and what the next steps are, and what to expect going forward. There are a few possible paths. Charges could proceed. Charges could be amended. Charges could be dismissed. Or the case could move toward trial. None of those outcomes are decided tonight. What is decided tonight is how the process unfolds. And that's what we're here for. Not to sensationalize, but just to understand. So let's start watching. Stay thoughtful in the chat, keep it respectful, and let's walk through this together. All right. Let me get this up. Hang on there. Don't you start a barking and carrying on.
I thought I heard somebody barking.
She's standing right. Alan.
What kind of ball did the boys have last night?
Basketball.
Oh.
Okay. Oops. That wasn't it. I'm sorry. Hang on here. This was it.
Safety of this community. As the court noted, I did send exhibits. Defense has a copy of those as well. The state's exhibits are focused on what Rule 5409 actually requires. Pretrial detention is not a credibility trial. It's not a civil damages dispute, nor is it the studio's internal investigation, which is at best minimal and insufficient. It's whether the defendant is dangerous and if the court can impose conditions to secure the safety of the community. Thank you. And that's what the state will be focusing on. As I go through the state's exhibits, I will address some of the defendant's exhibits as well. I know the court gave the state an hour, so I would like to reserve some time for rebuttal as well. So the state's first exhibit is just a printout of Odyssey of the defendant's history here in New Mexico, which the state shows that there is none besides the underlying charges here. State's exhibit 2 is a register of actions from the underlying case that we're here on, and just an event of showing when the criminal complaint was filed and the arrest warrant and when that warrant was served, along with the criminal complaint, which I will mostly focus on today. So I want to give some context, as there's a lot of defense exhibits along with the arrest warrant that is pretty lengthy. The named victims in this case, they started working on the show, The Cleaning Lady, in 2021. They filmed the pilot. They were asked later to come back for seasons 1 through 3, and that lasted until spring of 24. SL did the primary acting for seasons 1 and 2, although VL acted as well, and VL did the primary acting in season 3. Before season 4, there was a lot of back and forth with the children if they were going to continue to be casted in their role. After the 3 seasons, the boys were asked to audition, which is something they didn't have to do through seasons 1, 2, and 3. They had that audition here in Albuquerque in September of 2024. The lead actress in the show, her name is Elodie Young, and she was very close with the family. They went on vacations. However, she has not been compliant with this investigation. At that time of the audition, Ms. Young asked the mother of the parents to come, taken in a back room to do this audition. And then they left after the audition. Later, they found out that VL or SL was not going to be casted for the role that they've been in for the first 3 seasons. And only VL auditioned that day. Which, after they were released, the parents, I believe, posted that they were thankful for their opportunities, was very thankful for the show. Even though at that time the show was still using the boys, the victims in this case, to promote season 4. So eventually this brings us to the start of the investigation, which is the state's 2. There was concerns about abuse because the parents were being tagged in social media posts about the defendant's history. Because of those concerns, they asked their boys if there was any, with anyone, not just Mr. Busfield, but with anybody, if they were having any issues or inappropriate touching, anything like that. Or if they, actually, I think it was very clear that it was if they were uncomfortable in any situation. When the boy said, "Do you mean like with Uncle Tim?" Later, in November of 2024, the children were seen at UNMH. In UNMH, the doctor there is the one that referred this case, called the police and reported it, which as a mandated reporter needed to. So based off of the doctor seeing the children and speaking with the parents and getting a medical history, they had concerns about grooming and the sexual abuse, and they reported it to law enforcement. APD later, I believe the same day, were dispatched to the parents' homes. They talked to the parents and they talked to the boys. The boys did not disclose any sexual abuse, but did disclose signs of grooming and did disclose that the defendant had touched them. Because there was no disclosure of sexual abuse, APD essentially closed the case. CACU said they weren't able to take the case. During this time, after the doctor visit, I believe in November 2024, the kids then started therapy. I do want to note that in child abuse cases, I know the court is aware of this, is it's very typical that, well, one, officers are not supposed to speak with children, right? Because of the power dynamic, and they want to make sure they're getting a reliable disclosure. So it's not uncommon that the kids did not disclose at that time or were ready to disclose at that time to a police officer that showed up at their house. Also, it's not best practices when interviewing a child according to our MDD structure by statute in New Mexico and across the country. Later, in February of 25, February 17th and 18th, there was a referral made to the SAG hotline about the boy that took over the role that the twins played. And that referral essentially said that a person saw the defendant kiss the boy while he was getting a haircut, that the defendant was intoxicated, and he had been drinking in his trailer as well. The next day, there was another referral made to the SAG hotline about how the defendant was alone with VL during this audition back in September. It's my understanding that the parents of the victims in this case did not make any of those referrals. Because of the liability and now these referrals, Warner Brothers did their own investigation and hired, I believe, outside counsel, misgovern, to conduct this investigation. I know that is part of defense's exhibits. However, if you actually read those, the first one that was done in February, I believe it concluded in March, beginning of March.
I did read them.
Thank you.
They
They didn't interview any of the necessary witnesses to what was actually reported, which I think shows you the reliability of the investigation as well. After that investigation was concluded and there was a report, it's my understanding that Warner Brothers or this outside counsel was calling the parents of the twin boys. They went to talk to a civil attorney on how to address any communications, and I believe their attorney sent some concerns or a letter, I'm not too sure exactly, but sent some information about the boys. That's the second report that, as you see, is not done till September of 2025. In that report, there are concerns of sexual abuse, and nobody, the independent attorney nor Warner Brothers, ever reported this abuse. As we know in New Mexico, it's mandated that everybody, not just teachers, doctors, are mandated reporters, but everybody is. And so it is concerning that an investigator who is still investigating, even though they didn't talk to the kids or anyone relevant to that information, they still didn't report any abuse despite this letter. And they found, in both findings, they found that there was no wrongdoing, essentially, even though their investigation was pretty minimal and the witnesses needed weren't ever interviewed. Which now brings us, because that report was done in September of 2025, which now brings us to how the boys then disclosed the sexual abuse against the defendant. It was during therapy, not the parents, to a neutral party, that SL described sexual abuse by the defendant, and VL disclosed inappropriate touching. SL even disclosed in therapy that he was mad at his dad because he thought he knew that it was going on because he had the iPad or these links to watch his children. The therapist then made a referral. I believe that then a doctor saw the kids at Journey Pediatrics. Also, the therapist throughout their time had diagnosed one of the boys, SL, with PTSD because of these issues. In September, SL was seen by a doctor adjourning pediatrics who also reported or indicated sexual abuse in that visit and treatment of the children. I also want to make something clear that the doctor at Journey Pediatrics in September of 2025 was the one who reported the concerns to CYFD. The mother did not call CYFD. It was the doctor. I know that the court is aware of this. However, it is the norm in child sexual abuse cases that kids delay disclose, and for many reasons that are also present here in this case. About 80% of children delay disclose. That's not only known nationally and supported by literature, but also in my experience prosecuting these cases. So it is not abnormal, but the norm on how the kids reported. It's also very normal that kids give a little bit at a time to test the waters to see what happens. As reported in their forensic interview, they talked about being scared. They talked about people being mean to them. And so that also shows why a delayed disclosure is typically made and supported by the literature. In October of 2025, October 31st of 2025, after this investigation started again with the detective on this case, during those safe house interviews, again, to a neutral third party, the boys disclosed the abuse. I also want to make this clear that the boys never said that the abuse happened when they were alone with the defendant. They actually indicated that some people were around and some people would leave. They never said that this happened when they were alone with him. So these arguments coming from defense and the exhibits provided don't add up with the testimony and with the kids' disclosures that they have given. The boys also disclosed how it made them feel and how uncomfortable they were. What's also noticeable is that when SL discloses the timeline of abuse, it matches up with the other witnesses, including his set teacher, the person that supervised him while on set, changed, that his behavior changed, that he didn't want to act anymore. He didn't want to be around anymore. So this isn't just coming from the child, but this is also coming from witnesses. His behavior corroborates what he is saying as well. What is also important and throughout this investigation is what the defendant told police. He stated that he would tickle and pick up the boys, even though he knew that with Warner Brothers, they weren't allowed to be alone or touching. But then later he contradicts himself and says that he doesn't really even remember the boys, after he's already said he did tickle the boys, and it's highly likely that he did touch them, not sexually, but touch them by tickling them in all of the other grooming aspects that the kids disclose. So his own statement contradicts the letters really provided on defense's behalf. Something notable also is the defendant says that the victim's father very much encouraged the behavior to hug Mr. Busfield, and he felt uncomfortable, but he never told the dad to stop, that it's not, that we don't hug children, that we don't touch children. He never told that. He never said that. As you see in State's Exhibit 2, several witnesses were also interviewed. Lauren Trujillo and Taylor Trujillo, that also discussed that the kids weren't always supervised. And even the set teacher, Lee Lewin, she also said that she was in the main room where there wasn't cameras, but that she confirmed the iPads and confirmed there was a lot of people around, but that people lose track. There's a lot going on in these sets. I want to mention Danielle Vigil and Christina Carr, because now it seems like they're unhappy after they already gave a statement to police on how it was portrayed. The court knows that not everything in every interview is word for word in documentation. What is relevant to the allegations is what is usually in a criminal complaint arrest warrant. Especially this warrant was already quite lengthy. However, there is concerns that people have now got to those witnesses since speaking with police. And now they're writing affidavits on behalf of the defendant, suggesting that what they said wasn't true. So as for the dangerousness prong, State's Exhibit 2 shows that criminal sexual contact of a minor is a mandatory serious violent offense, which is different from necessarily dangerous. And here might not seem violent in the literal sense, but any deal of harm done to a child, especially when it comes to sexual abuse, the deal of physical harm, the emotional harm is long lasting. And that behavior, when grooming children, engaging in grooming and engaging in sexual abuse, is inherently dangerous. The state does have other arguments to make on dangerousness when it comes to the defendant's history. And I want to make clear that nowhere in the case law and nowhere in 5409 or the F6 factors say that the defendant's history has to be charged criminal conduct. In fact, it can be unknown conduct at the time and what's presented to the court, which is laid out also in State's Exhibit 2 about prior allegations, and in State's Exhibit 3, 4, 5, and 6 of other victims, and the victims that we already knew have reported previously have come forward and gave a statement as well. So the first allegation, a 17-year-old disclosed that the defendant had sexually assaulted her, tried to serve her alcohol, and groped her. Unfortunately, at that time, what she reported is that the cops said that he wasn't going to be there much longer, and there was nothing that they could do. And there was later a civil suit filed in which the defendant later settled. That was back in 1994, and that victim was 17 years old at the time. Something I want to know about the kids' disclosures and all of the disclosures that were made prior and have been made since, there's a pattern. The pattern is all touching. There's a pattern of his conduct. Also, the boys' disclosures in this case, they were detailed, they were visceral, they were also not exaggerated, which I think cuts into defense's argument about what they think this case is. I say that because I think it is important when we're filing PDMs on these types of cases. If defense wants this court to believe that this is all about money, wouldn't it be easier for a child and all of these previous victims to disclose more than criminal sexual contact? It's shocking that all of the victims that have reported all report a similar pattern from the defendant, and they're not exaggerated, which makes the evidence in their disclosures credible. The second allegation occurred in March of 2012. It's my understanding that, and I believe this victim has called law enforcement as well, but essentially he had—
Is this one of your exhibits?
Yes, it's in Stage 2.
Oh, okay.
Just,
Stage
yeah,
2. Okay.
the last page of the arrest warrant, Your Honor, or the second to last page. In March of 2012, a 28-year-old accused Busfield of touching her inappropriately in a movie theater. She reported to police, and the prosecutors felt like there was not enough evidence to move forward, and he said it was consensual. Again, that pattern of touching, of criminal sexual contact, is important for the pattern of the defendant, especially when it comes to the F6 factors, which I will get to. With the reports, even from the two victims I just spoke about, also shows that the defendant is dangerous, along with State's Exhibit 3, 4, 5, and 6. Rachel Wright was that victim, the 17-year-old victim. That's what State's Exhibit 3 is. I think what's also notable is that she felt, and you can see this on the second page of State's Exhibit 3, is that she felt like he was manipulating her throughout the process as well. State's Exhibit 4. These victims reported soon after, but this had happened a long time ago. The victim in this case, and I believe this has been reported to APD, but I think has been reported to Sacramento PD as well. That victim was 16 years old at the time. She was working at B Street Theater, a theater in Sacramento that the defendant and his brother started. I believe she was interning or working there, and the defendant again touched her, kissed her, and then stuck his hands down her pants, touching her genitals. Their report is that the defendant's brother and the defendant came to talk to the victim and the victim's dad to not report it, and that he would get therapy, which the family agreed with, and nothing went further in that case. State's Exhibit 5 is from the defendant and his wife's personal assistant. They worked, I believe, through the May of 2017 until 2019. And she mostly describes how the defendant was inappropriate, intimidating, that there was a lot of, this position of authority that we've kind of seen play out in this case and all of the other victims that have come forward, and had made comments to her about the way she acted and that he might have a crush on her if she continues that behavior. So there was concerns of inappropriate conduct with her as well. State 6, Claudia Christian, who is an actress, she has reported that when they were filming The Strays, the defendant and her, she was already casted as an actress, and during the show, they were running lines, which was common, and they went to his trailer. She stated that once she got there, he was alone, and almost immediately after she entered his trailer, he forcibly grabbed her and threw her against the wall, and started kissing her, and he had an erection. And she ended up running out and telling the, I believe, assistant director to keep her away from Mr. Busfield. Which those allegations also go to the defendant's dangerousness. So I think by clear and convincing evidence, the state has met the dangerousness prong here in this case. Not only because that people are coming forward and reporting this, but the way they're reporting, how the pattern is consistent, and the power that the defendant has had over all of these victims and the position that he's played that role in. When it comes to conditions of release, the court focuses on the F6 factors. The first factor, the nature and circumstances of the offense charged, and whether that offense is a crime of violence, which the state has gone through and argues that we have met that, the nature and circumstances of the offense charged, and that this is a crime of violence. The weight of evidence against defense. It's still the state's position that the evidence is strong. The boys' allegations are supported by medical findings and by their therapist. And again, their accounts were specific and not exaggerated. I want to touch on this a little bit more due to defense's filings. Defense first couple exhibits are about the victim's parents and their criminal history, essentially saying they have a motive to lie because they have a past, because they have had a conviction and had some other lawsuits. The parents aren't the victims in this case. The parents are not the ones making these allegations. The kids didn't even disclose to their parents. They disclosed to a neutral third party, two of them, their therapist and a doctor. To believe, well, first, during criminal proceedings, there is no money attached. They don't get money at the end of this process. for a victim to go through this is not an easy process at all. Defense makes allegations about how much the kids were acting, which is they're quite a bit off, but yes, they were making money for working. And what makes more sense is because they weren't with Mr. Busfield anymore, is to continue to get acting jobs if they were about money, not to come through the criminal justice system, because it's not guaranteed. Neither is a civil case, and there's no civil case that has been filed by the parents at this time. I think that argument doesn't make a whole lot of sense when looking at the facts and what we're here on today. We're here about what the kids are disclosing, what the crime charged is, and if there's conditions that the court can set, not about the parents' history. And essentially what they're saying is that anybody that has a criminal history can never be a victim because they're going to lie. But this isn't about the parents' history. This is about the defendant and the defendant's history and why he won't comply with conditions of release.
Actually, I do have a question.
Yes.
With regards to the parents, there's reference to the parents having an attorney, and the attorney gave them the advice to seek out medical intervention in this case. Has there been a lawsuit filed, or is there plans to file a companion civil lawsuit?
It's my understanding that they are not filing a civil lawsuit. The attorney they talked to about what to do was a friend of the families. I believe one of their employers, actually. What do we do in this circumstance? It was more as friendly advice, not let's start the civil lawsuit and then.
Okay. That part wasn't clear.
Yes.
That it was a
Yes.
friend. Okay.
I wanted to make that clear. And there is no civil lawsuit filed.
Okay.
Sorry, Judge, I'm just going back to my notes. I think what is also important when it comes to the weight of evidence against the defendant is that we have corroborating evidence. That the defendant, once the defendant started directing SL, that's when he didn't want to act anymore or be on set. That there's been bedwetting nightmares, that other witnesses have also seen a big shift, despite defendants' affidavits. There are still witnesses that say, no, these kids, SL particularly, had a change in behavior after Mr. Busfield started directing him. And I know I stated this, but I do want to make this clear because so many of the affidavits and so many of the letters of support say this could not happen because there were so many people around. The kids didn't say it happened when they were alone. And we see every day that sexual abuse with children can happen in front of several people. We know that from well-known cases. We know that from the Larry Nassar case, where he was physically and sexually abusing his patients in front of their parents. We know that these events and these crimes can happen in front of other people and them not recognize or see what is going on. The history and characteristic of the defendant, like I said, there's nowhere in the rule that says there has to be known criminal convictions, but a history, as I laid out, the pattern, the reliability of how almost all of the reports of sexual abuse against the defendant are all very similar and not exaggerated. That his history spans back 30 years, back to the 1990s. And this characteristic of the defendant, the state would argue, possesses a high risk, a very high risk of offense. Because either people are going to continue to ignore it, and they're going to continue to believe that the defendant could never do anything like this. And that he would never do something like this, which I'll get to his letters in a moment. I think what's also important to note is the defendant's testing that he did, this ABLE testing. When it really comes to risk assessment of offenders, which that testing really has nothing to do with risk assessment, which would be more appropriate for this hearing when the court's considering conditions of release, really has to do with if he's at risk. He's already been named in a lawsuit early on, back in the 90s, and the behavior hasn't stopped. In fact, it's continued, as we see in these reports and other allegations, and he's continued to get away with them. And so the ongoing risk of the defendant reoffending or continuing to do what he has because of the power of his position shows this court that he does have the likelihood that he could reoffend. the nature and seriousness of the danger to any person or the community that would be posed by the defendant's release. Hearing is about. This doesn't, those questions had nothing to do with if he was going to apply with conditions to release.
With my notes.
Secondly, I'd like to apologize for consuming what I imagine was a lot of the court's time this long
It's okay.
weekend. So I'd like to tell the court how we intend to structure our hour in this case. I'm going to give some brief introductory remarks, followed by one witness. And then Ms. Fairberg will take over for argumentation. Okay. I would ask at this time that the court accept defendants' exhibits A through BB.
Yep.
They don't believe when victims come forward, able to put together. Every aspect of the state's case is flawed. Every aspect of the state's case is questionable. I don't need to tell the court this, but my client is presumed innocent. As he sits here today, he is an innocent man. And I have significant concerns about the prosecution talking as if he has already been convicted. She referred to the people who wrote letters of support. She said, quote, "They don't believe when victims come forward." It's our legal system that starts from the position of saying, we don't believe. It must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. The question before the court today is the court going to hold Mr. Busfield in custody pending the trial in this matter, if we ever get that far? There has not yet been an indictment. We have not received a target notice.
Oh, it's going to grand jury, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, okay.
We have not received a target notice.
Do you guys have a date for that yet?
I do, but if the court wants it, I'd ask for it to be in private. I
Okay.
can comply.
Okay.
So they're sending it to
The
a
state's arguments are based on a fallacy. Their fallacy is heads we win, tails you lose. You don't bring any evidence to pretrial detention hearings, you're dangerous. We're going to detain you. You bring a bunch of evidence. That's how powerful he is. That's how terrible he is. We detain him. That's their argument here today. I want to compare the state's presentation of evidence with the defense presentation of evidence. 6 exhibits. 6 exhibits. That's what the state has brought. They've brought Odyssey printouts, and then really the meat of their case is a criminal complaint and several police reports, all authored by the same person, Detective Brown, the person who was in charge of this investigation. And as we make clear in our papers, there are significant concerns about what Mr. Brown, or Detective Brown, includes in his reports and doesn't include. Ms. Brandenburg, during argument, stated that, oh, well, only what's relevant goes into the criminal complaint. And Ms. Fairberg is going to play this for the court later, but when the children were first talked to by the police in this case.
The 2 audio clips.
Correct.
Thank you for sending those. I did listen to those.
Great. As the court is well aware then, it wasn't simply that the children did not disclose sexual abuse. They flat out denied it. They said, no, it didn't happen. The fact is that the criminal complaint in this case is slanted. It is slanted to bolster the state's case and omit exculpatory evidence. The evidence that we brought to court, the evidence favoring Mr. Busfield, cannot be used in the way the state is claiming. Oh, somehow bringing evidence should be weighing in their favor. And the court cannot indulge this kind of argument. Evidence favoring Mr. Busfield can only be interpreted one way, in his favor. It would turn our justice system upside down to say that if somebody defends themselves, it must mean that they are dangerous.
give us the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and the penalty of perjury. I did. Thanks. Please have a seat. Have you testified before?
I haven't.
Okay. So everything's being recorded in this microphone here. So please just be sure to speak loudly and clearly into that. The
I
attorneys
should
are
sit, right?
Yeah. And the attorneys are going to ask you some questions now. Okay. Okay. Mr. Dunn.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you please state your name for the record?
Alan Cadillo.
And Mr. Cadillo, what do you do for a living?
I'm a director of photography on movies and television shows.
What is a director of photography?
Director of photography supervises all the photography for a project, hires crew, and in television shows, guides guest directors through the process of that particular show.
And as a director of photography, do you work closely with the director on any given project?
Yes,
And how long have you worked in the film industry?
over 35 years,
How many projects have you worked on?
hundreds of projects.
How many days of filming do you think you've done?
Thousands of days.
And are you a member of any unions?
I am. I'm a member of the International Cinematographers Guild, Local 600, and of the Directors Guild of America, TGA.
And have you worked on any projects that I might have heard of?
Yeah. Probably the biggest project I worked on was The Hangover. I was one of the directors of photography on The Hangover and Hangover 2.
Now, I want to turn and I want to talk about The Cleaning Lady. Did you work on a television show called The Cleaning Lady?
I did.
And what was your role on The Cleaning Lady?
I was the lead director of photography for seasons 1 through 4.
Were there more than 4 seasons of The Cleaning Lady?
No, it was canceled after the 4th season.
So you were the lead director of photography for all 4 seasons?
Correct.
And as the lead director of photography on The Cleaning Lady, did you interact with Timothy Busfield?
I did. Tim came to us season 2 at the end of the season, episode 11. So he came as a guest director on that. And then they brought him back seasons 3 and 4.
For seasons 3 and 4?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Why did they bring him back?
He was well liked by the cast and the crew. Did an excellent job, and they needed somebody to help supervise future directors who were going to be guests to help them do that process for season 3 and 4. So he was a producer director for those last 2 seasons.
Okay. Yeah, what does that mean, being a producer director?
Part of it is really he's helping to make sure that each guest director comes in, understands the process, and knows the ins and outs of working with the cast, understands of course the crew or locations, and then also he supervises editing and music things and casting to some extent. So he's there to be a guide for the show series.
And so just so I'm clear, Mr. Busfield was involved with The Cleaning Lady for season 2, episode 11, and then all of season 3 and 4.
Correct. Yeah, he was directed 1 episode season 2, and then I think 2 episode 3 and 2 episode 4.
Okay, so he directed a total of 5 episodes.
I believe it's 5. Yeah, I believe it was 5.
Now, have you reviewed the criminal complaint in this case?
I did read it. I saw it on Deadline. Yeah.
And are you aware of the allegations by, I want to refer them by their initials. Okay, let's just make sure we do that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware of the allegations by SL in this case?
I am, from that complaint.
And you know, when I refer to SL, you know who I'm talking about, correct?
I do.
And based on your review of the criminal complaint, what is your understanding of the nature of the allegations in this case?
I'm sorry, I don't. My understanding of the nature, like what happened?
What does he say happened?
Oh, he said that Tim touched him inappropriately on set.
Okay. And was that during filming? Do you know?
It seemed to me from the complaint he was saying it was on set while we were filming. He'd said, I think I remember reading, he said something like when he cut, he would come in and that's when he would do it.
Okay. Now, as the director of photography, did you work on every episode that Mr. Busfield directed?
I did.
Did you work closely with him on each of those episodes?
Yeah, absolutely. I worked very closely with all of the directors, and that first episode he was a guest, so it was one of my jobs as we've been there for 2 years, is to make sure he understands our process, gets to know the cast and crew, sets and things like that. So we worked very, very closely. I never left his side.
Okay. And so is it possible that Mr. Busfield inappropriately touched SL on the set of The Cleaning Lady?
No.
Why not?
Film sets may seem chaotic if you're an outsider. but everything we do is incredibly regimented. We're all a group of professionals who all know what they need to do, a lot of times without being told. And at any given time, if the child was on set, there was at minimum of 10 people there on the set with them. It's just how it works. There's 2 cameras, 2 camera operators, 2 focus pullers, 2 boom guys, a prop person, a hair and makeup person, the studio person would usually be there, the first assistant director, 2 dolly grips. And that's for every take, for every shot, always, especially with the children, because we had such a limited amount of time with the children. If they were on the set, we would bring them on and start rolling, because once they, the rules are such, if we go over, that's it, we're done. And we have to not shoot the scene and go over and spend a ton of money. So every second of their time was regimented. We often wouldn't even rehearse with the children, especially with these young guys. They weren't the best actors. They were, perfect look for the show, but they weren't the best performers. So we would rehearse with the stand-in, which was an adult. And then we would just bring them in and have them do the part. So they would even, a lot of times they wouldn't even be there for rehearsals.
What do
I
y'all
want to
think?
shift and talk now about these boys and their parents, okay? During filming of The Cleaning Lady, did you get to know the boys and their parents?
Yes.
And how much did you interact with those 4 people?
Pull your camera down.
Well, not a ton, but I always take care. I always make sure I get to know the cast very well, and the crew as well, but the cast, and try to get to know the parents of children when they come on the set, so they feel comfortable, know that we're there taking care of their children, and they feel comfortable. So I got to know them. I would see them when they would come to set.
Okay.
And we did occasionally see them after, at rap parties and things like that.
Rap parties?
Well, when it's over, you go and have dinner and to celebrate the season.
Great. Okay. The boys' parents, what were they like?
I think the mother was she always seemed very, very nervous and anxious and very quiet and reserved. The father was very aggressive, really very talkative, but didn't really seem to say much, just very aggressive, very kind of alpha male sort of guy. It seemed like a typical sort of aggressive set parent.
Was there anything that the father did that seemed odd to you?
Yeah, I mean, yes. He was overly aggressive with me. I feel like he was always trying to be my friend or wanting to, go do things after work or go have drinks or golf or things like that. And I wasn't really that interested in that. Something he did do that for me that made me uncomfortable, and it was addressed earlier, was that he would have the kids, if we came on set and, if I was giving a high five to the kids and they missed it, the father would go, hey, go give Mr. Allen a hug. And that made me feel uncomfortable, because I would never let my kids just force my kids to hug somebody. There should be something that they want to do, or it's, mutual, not, say you have to hug somebody. So that really kind of was like nails in the chalkboard for me, like to force one's child to hug somebody they didn't really know.
Did it seem like the father was trying to force relationships, like between you and the children and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, it did. I felt like, he wanted, honestly, I don't think he understood what I did. I'm not, a director of photography is a below the line person. We're not bosses. I'm a boss of my group, the lighting, the grip, and the camera people, but I'm not a decision maker. I don't cast. I don't do things like that. And I think he might have misunderstood what I did, because people would listen to me on set, because I'm giving people, put that light there, put that camera there.
You mean you seemed important?
I seemed important. And I think he thought, okay, then I better make sure that he's got a good relationship with that guy.
I see. Now, I want to ask you about the kids leaving the show. How did the kids end up leaving?
Well, a couple things happened. Well, several things happened. One, because of COVID, our schedule got extended. So when we started the project, when they shot the pilot in 2021, we didn't really even start shooting the series until, I think, the summer of 22. So it's a year later. So these children have already grown up, and the show takes place in, really, I think the whole series, all 4 seasons of the show, I think take place in like 1 year or maybe a year and a half time. It was really, story-wise, it was compressed. And so because of, circumstances, we had a big writers and actors strike. So we ended up pushing, and the kids kept growing, so, by the time we started really shooting, by the time we got to season 3, they had grown different heights, and their facial structures had changed, right? So they just didn't look like they did at the end even of the prior season. And it became, I think, clear that we needed to make a change. It wasn't my decision, but, the studio decided that.
Okay. And have you heard about how the parents took it when they were informed that the children were not be coming back?
I did hear. I was not there when that happened, because we had already finished. That happened after we were starting season 4.
Okay.
Well, prepping season 4, not shooting. And I heard that they took it very badly, that they were very, very upset.
Now, I want to ask you just one additional line of questioning. how much pay did the kids get for each episode?
I honestly can't say it. I'm not, like I said, I'm the working guy, not the producer.
Sure.
I had heard that it was, like around 50 to 60 grand, something like that
Per episode?
per episode. I think that was between the two.
Like
which-
combined?
Combined, yeah.
Okay.
Again, I'm not a producer. Nobody ever gave me a budget, so I don't know.
But that's what you'd heard.
But that's what I heard, and that doesn't seem out of bounds for what that rate is for what actors make.
And how many episodes were there in season 1?
Season 1 was 10 episodes.
And how many episodes were there in seasons 2 and 3?
I believe those were 12 episodes each. Yeah,
So 34 episodes.
correct. Yeah, correct.
So over the course of those 3 seasons, we're talking millions of dollars.
Yeah, not my strong suit, but yeah, that's like $1.5 million, something like that, Brooke.
I
Yeah.
don't think math is your strong suit.
It is not I'm sorry, it's not.
Now, Mr. Cadillo, do you have any idea how much of that money would have to actually be set aside for the children?
I do actually.
How do
My
you know
my son was in a commercial, a nationwide commercial when he was 5 years old. I was shooting the commercial, and so then I was able to get him in, which is great. But it was a significant amount of money. It was a Super Bowl commercial, and so I was told we had to start a thing called a Coogan account, which is that you create a fund that isolates the money from the parents. So when the kid turns 18, they get that money. And interestingly, I thought it's 15%.
I'm
But
sorry,
15% is what they need to
put aside.
put aside. Yeah, but I actually thought it was the opposite, and I put 85% in the Coogan, thinking because it was shocking to me that parents can take 85% of a child's income, which is shocking, right? So it was so absurd to me. I put 85 in and not 15.
And so the parents get to keep, if they choose, 85% of the money that the
Yeah.
children make.
It's considered income, but yeah, they can spend it as they will, and there's no rule against it.
If I could have one moment, Your Honor. That's all I have.
Okay, Ms. Brandenburg-Koch, do you have any questions for Mr. Cadillo?
I do, Your Honor.
Awesome. Can you spell your last name for me?
It's Cadillo, C-A-U-D as in Denver, I-L-L-O.
Got it. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
It's my understanding that you wrote an affidavit,
I did.
and when did you write that?
I believe it was the 13th
Of January?
of January, yeah. I believe. I'm sorry, I don't have a copy of it, and I'm not great with dates either.
That's okay.
I'm not working, so every day is just today.
That's okay. If you need a copy, I have one if you need to see it. So you stated, and in your affidavit, that you were with Mr. Busfield 100% of the time.
On
Wait,
set, yes.
On set. So did you see him tickling and picking up the boys?
I never saw him tickling or picking up the boys.
You know that he did say he did tickle the boys.
I
and
think
got
it was
them ready?
in the complaint, but yeah, but I never saw him tickling or picking up the boys.
Also, you, in your affidavit and just now, you stated that the dad of the victims,
Mhm.
You had some concerns about him,
Yeah, he just felt weird to me. He was kind of creepy, to be honest with you.
and that you didn't like that he had his boys hug you.
He had his boys hug everybody. And so I just thought that, again, that this is just my personal belief about how I raise my children, which is that I wouldn't force my children to do something.
Okay.
That could be, it's just weird. So
So did you continue to hug the boys when they came in?
I actually
office?
rarely hug the boys. I would always I would do a high five or, just do like the very, as simple as I could. Again, he's a parent. He gets to choose how he raises his children. I am uncomfortable with that.
Did you tell him that you had concerns saying, I don't want to hug your boys?
Again, he's their parent, and I trust that he's doing what he feels like is the best he could do. I have concern with that.
Right. But for you, since you didn't want them hugging you, you never told their father.
No,
to-
I didn't say I didn't want them hugging me. I just said, I'm concerned that a parent would force a child to hug a stranger like that because the child would say, hey, go hug that person.
Okay. But
I like kids. I like to hug kids. And, I'm not saying I love my kids and I love these little boys, and I wanted them to be happy and healthy. Right. So I'm just saying, for me, that was a concern for me as I looked at the father.
did you ever have discussions about that with anyone else on set?
No.
When did you read the criminal complaint?
Whenever it came out on deadline, to be honest, it came out on deadline and I downloaded it and read it.
And who contacted you to write this affidavit?
Melissa, Tim's husband, asked if I would write something.
Tim's wife.
Correct.
Okay. And did you send that to Mr. Dodd's firm?
Yes, they contacted me and asked if I would do it. And I said, yes, I wrote it and sent, I actually think I sent it to Melissa
Okay.
and then she forwarded it to.
And you are aware at that time when you wrote this that the defendant did admit to tickling the boys on set.
I'm aware that I'm sorry, could you rephrase that question?
You were
All right,
aware.
I'm going to object.
Overruled. Go ahead.
Thank you. You were aware, because you read the criminal complaint,
Uh-huh.
that the defendant admitted to tickling the boys on set.
Well, it was in the complaint that he said he tickled him, yeah.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dodd, did you have any other questions for Mr. Cadillo?
If I could have one moment.
Sure.
Your Honor, I don't have any further questions for Mr. Cadillo.
Thank you. You can go ahead and take your seat. All right, and you want to switch over to Ms. Fairberg?
Your Honor, at this time, I'm going to hand it off to my partner, Ms. Fairberg, to make argument. Thank you.
I come with a lot of gear, Your Honor.
I see that.
As you know, we've all been busy this weekend. There's a lot of things, so I just want to be organized here for the court. Your Honor, I want to start with a presumption, not just in New Mexico, but in our system in general, and this comes from the United States versus Salerno, out of the United States Supreme Court. In our society, and I quote, Your Honor, quote, "In our society, liberty is the norm, and detention prior to trial or without trial is the carefully limited exception." That's based on the presumption of innocence that Mr. Dodd spoke about earlier, and it's echoed by Article 2, Section 13 of the New Mexico State Constitution, and of course, Rule 5409. This is in addition to the principle articulated in Gerstein versus Pugh that an accused may not be held absent a finding of probable cause. And Your Honor, I recognize that there's a finding of probable cause here by the Metropolitan Court judge signing the affidavit. But I actually want to encourage Your Honor to, in considering all of the evidence that was not available to that judge at that time, all of the pieces that were misconstrued in the complaint, as Mr. Dodd said, that does not appear to have been a neutral piece of evidence. I would actually encourage Your Honor to keep it in the back of your mind. Is there really even probable cause in this case? But setting that aside, what we in this state have asked and required of the state of New Mexico is that they must prove both dangerousness and that no conditions, no combination of conditions could keep the community safe, that they have to prove that by the exacting standard of clear and convincing evidence. Now, as Your Honor is aware, there's a lot of evidentiary latitude in these hearings, but that's not a reduction of their burden. All of that evidence, whether it's by a proffer, criminal complaint, things that wouldn't be admissible at trial, it still needs to be, according to the rule, reliable proof. It still needs to be reliable. And our Supreme Court in Mascareno versus Hadel has described that burden, clear and convincing, as evidence, and quote, Your Honor, quote, "evidence that instantly tilts the scales in the affirmative when weighed against the evidence in opposition." The state's nowhere near close to such an instant tilt. Not even close. And Your Honor, I'm not going to rehash every single one of the 5409 factors, although I will touch on them throughout my argument, but please let me know if you have a question about any one of them. But the state bases its motion on two: the nature and circumstances of the offense charged and the history and characteristics of the defendant. We just heard Ms. Brandenburg address the defense's concern that the state of New Mexico, both in public statements and now here in court, has acknowledged that, yeah, when they accuse someone of a crime against children, as a matter of routine, they file for pretrial detention. That's not what our law contemplates. This isn't meant to be routine. This is the carefully limited exception. And what we see is an approach that does not treat it as such. Basing the detention on charges alone is just not enough. And again, I want to read to you, Your Honor, from Mascareno versus Hadel, because our New Mexico Supreme Court has addressed this dead on, of whether the allegations, the nature of the charge, the statute under which a defendant is charged, is that enough? Is that enough for pretrial detention? And they tackle it head on and they say no. And I quote, "To allow the state to rely solely on the nature and circumstances of the charged offenses, not only to prove that the defendant poses a future threat to others or the community, but also to prove that no release conditions will reasonably protect the safety of any other person or the community, would all but eliminate Article 2, Section 13, and the corresponding constitutional burden of the state." Close quote. We just heard Ms. Brandenburg say, yeah, anyone who's charged with a crime against a child is manipulative, cannot be trusted. There's no conditions of release that could possibly control that. And Your Honor, I would push back strongly on that. Not only because our Supreme Court has said explicitly, that's not how we do this. That's not how we do this procedure. But also, I think that really minimizes the power of the court, the power of pretrial services. The idea here, and I just want to address this up front, the idea here, based on this pattern that the alleged pattern that I will address of brought forward by the state, what I understand they're saying is that there is an allegation that Mr. Busfield has, over the decades that he has been in Hollywood, has exploited his power for touching, mostly, by the way, post-pubescent adult women. So again, I think there's a disconnect here that undermines the allegations in this case, but that there is a pattern of doing that, exploiting his power. I think we need to acknowledge the reality of the world that we live in, that power is gone. The state has canceled Mr. Busfield. His talent agency has dropped him. He's been edited out of a recent rom-com, a project that was just about to be released, not. He has no power. He is persona non grata. And that's not because he did anything wrong. As Mr. Dodd has very well said, he's presumed innocent. But that's because of the world we live in. And it's because that these allegations, this complaint is not only all over New Mexico, all over the national media, it is all over the world. It's too late. That bell can't be unrung. The idea that he could then go out and be dangerous with a child in the world where everybody knows who he is absurd. That's absurd. Or that he could exploit power. He's not getting anybody any roles. He's not advancing anybody's career. And I think what this shows, Your Honor, is that the state is not acknowledging the individualized circumstances of the defendant, not acknowledging the reality, because what they're doing is they're proceeding as a matter of routine. So I just wanted to get that out there in the open. But now, Your Honor, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about these exhibits that the state has characterized as largely irrelevant, which I frankly find incredible. This evidence was compiled, as Mr. Dodd said, not by the state, not through some nefarious means by the defendant who's been in custody, but through a legal team, and mostly through people reaching out to us. Because again, this has been all over the global media. This is no secret. I don't know why this evidence is not portrayed in the criminal complaint. I don't know why this evidence has not been considered by the state of New Mexico. I'm frankly surprised, given the weight of this evidence. I'm going to say it outright, Your Honor. There is not a universe in which the state has the evidence, and we've received their discovery. We received it on Friday, as you know. There's not a universe that they could prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. It's impossible. So the fact that we're here, again, I feel like we're in an incredible situation right now. So what this evidence shows is, one, the state's witnesses aren't credible. And although Ms. Brandenburg-Koch said that that's not relevant to the detention inquiry, yes, it is. Of course it is. Because again, Your Honor has to base your decision on reliable proof. Well, if the allegations aren't credible, if the witnesses aren't credible, it's not reliable. The other thing that this pile of evidence shows is that the complaint itself isn't credible, meaning the actual four corners of the complaint. There are so many omissions, so many independent people coming forward to say, I've been misrepresented in there. And again, it's not, nobody's seeking these people out. And then finally, it shows that the allegations aren't credible. And I heard Ms. Brandenburg-Koch say a couple of times that the defense argument, the allegations aren't credible, doesn't hold water because the boys have never said that this happened alone. That's not true. That's not true. Again, this is a case that has had evolving allegations. But as we see in Defense's Exhibit I, Your Honor, the second Warner Brothers independent investigation, which directly addresses the allegations herein, but the state did not include or reference in its criminal complaint, specifically says, and I'll just go ahead, I'm going to skip forward, and I quote, Your Honor, from, again, that's Defense's Exhibit I, that the allegation was that Mr. Busfield had isolated the twins, quote, out of sight and sound, quote. That's the allegation. The fact that these allegations have evolved only makes them less credible. That actually, no, it wasn't out of sight and sound. It was where everybody could see it. It was, so I just want to put that out there now. I want to start with the criminal complaint. And Your Honor, I'd like to use my microphone here. I'd like to play for Your Honor, Defense Exhibit Z. This is an audio only clip of the first interview that police had with the boys in 2024. And Ms. Brandenburg-Koch has said, it's not good practice to be asking kids questions before a safe house. I agree. And what this evidence shows is that there's been a good year and a half of their parents coaching them along before the safe house. So I agree. This is in the beginning. This is the first time they speak. And so this starts with VL, Your Honor. And assuming that my technological prowess is not terrible, I'm going to play it for you right now.
And you know what's right and wrong, right?
We're going to start over. And obviously I'm not playing the whole interview for Your Honor.
And you know what's right and wrong, right? You know where people can't touch, where people can't do. Yeah, you know that, right? Does Tim ever do that?
No, he's never touched me.
Never touched you?
Yeah.
In like, you know, your private areas, right?
Yeah.
Never did that?
Never.
Okay.
Let's go on, Your Honor, to Defense Exhibit AA. This is 5 minutes later, separate. The boys were separated. The same police officer, this time speaking to SL, out of the presence of his brother.
So you know what's right and wrong, right?
Yeah.
You know when to touch your private areas?
Yeah, but he doesn't touch them.
Doesn't touch your private parts? Okay.
That's not, Your Honor, a failure to disclose. That's an express denial. And the officer followed up just to make sure he didn't touch your private areas, because the conversation before, I'll express to Your Honor, the conversation before that was, you know, does Tim tickle you ever? And they said, well, you know, my shoulder sometimes. Do you like it? I kind of like it. I kind of don't like it. And then they went into the conversation about the private parts. This was not a failure to disclose. This was an express denial. And I want to talk, Your Honor, about the medical records that the state has referenced. We did not submit them as exhibits, but given the state's argument today, I would like to read a couple of pieces from it. And that is because the state's made the assertion that SL reported to his therapist unprompted and, you know, not to parents. It didn't come from parents. And what we see from the records is that's not accurate. It's not accurate. This complaint is not credible. This is from, I'm just going to read a portion. I'm going to read a few portions, but this one is from one of the very first notes. And in the room are SL, his father, Ronald Rodas, and the therapist. These are her notes. And I quote, "Father then told client that client needs to trust therapist and feel safe to talk about the abuse so that client and family can heal." Only after that did then SL say, okay, well, here's the abuse. This was not a spontaneous disclosure that happened with someone he trusted. This was in the presence of looking at dad. And the reason we know that is because there are other medical records that say, there are so many things, and I want to make sure I've got the right one for Your Honor. Okay. There's an allegation in the complaint that SL was having nightmares, suffering from PTSD from this abuse. Well, what the medical records show is actually he wasn't having nightmares. When his father is not in the room with him, when his father's not in the room with him, SL tells the therapist that he's waking up at night, and I quote, "waking up at night due to being too hot or too cold." His father tells that client is having a nightmare when client wakes up, but client does not remember it. Multiple times throughout the medical records, multiple times, SL tells the therapist, "I wake up because I'm hot." And then the therapist says, "Well, why don't you tell your dad that you're not having nightmares, that you're just hot?" And then this is what he says to that. Client, quote, "Client feels the need to please his father and at times is scared to tell him what's going on due to fears of disappointing him." These aren't credible, non-exaggerated allegations. These are manufactured allegations. This complaint omits all of that history. But not only that, we know that it also misconstrues conversations with its own witnesses. I'd like to play for Your Honor, Defense Exhibit S. This is a voicemail left, not solicited, left to the Busfield family's personal attorney. This is a voicemail from her.
Hi, this is Danielle Vigil. I'm reaching out regarding Timothy Busfield. I noticed that I was in the police reports for his warrant, and I was not very happy with how the detective twisted and used my words and just picked and choose what he wanted to put into that report. I don't feel comfortable with a man sitting in jail right now when I know what I said, and that's not everything or twisted words into the report. So I would like to be able to speak with someone about that because this has gotten kind of out of hand. So thank you. My phone number is 505.
We won't play her phone number for everybody, Your Honor. She's not the only one. States, defendants exhibit, I keep saying states, defendants exhibit L is an affidavit of Kristen Carr. She says the same thing. She says that the detective omitted from the criminal complaint things that she thought were crucial. That set teachers never left the boys unsupervised, that there were always 20 to 30 people in the room, and that she never saw the kids ever alone or somewhere where other people could not observe. But now let's get to the crux of it, because this is something Ms. Brandenburg-Koch talked about, the parents here, the parents. The issue is not that people with a criminal history cannot be the victims of crimes. That's not what this is. That's not, oh, there was a DWI here, or there was a conviction back there. That's not what this is. I think I'll say it the most simply. These two parents have a documented history. They're con artists, actual con artists. Ronald Rodas, Defendant's Exhibit A, the DOJ's press release. The DOJ's press release after he was convicted of wire fraud, defrauding 1,500 homeowners during the mortgage crisis through a sham law firm of over $6 million, served 3 years in prison, and was disbarred in the state of California. And this is what the DOJ says, and I quote from Defendant's Exhibit A. It is an unfortunate truth that people often take advantage of a crisis for personal gain. The Rodas Law Group was among the worst type of scammers, trying to take advantage of homeowners already experiencing profound heartache in the face of potential foreclosure. I didn't make up the word scammer. That came from the Department of Justice. And Angel LaSalle was no better. Defendants Exhibit E and F, that's a lawsuit, a civil lawsuit. Again, not just some unrelated idea. This is about stealing. This is about defrauding people. Had a Bentley, sold it for $90,000, didn't turn over the title, had the car unlawfully repossessed, and then fraudulently traded it in for a Porsche 911 in her mother's name. And that's in addition to a domesticated judgment for over $75,000, well, including penalties, but a $75,000 judgment for bad checks written at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Again, these are unrelated. So why? I mean, I guess the question here is, if the boys said that this never happened, why are we here? And we're here, it's documented through these witnesses. We're here because those boys lost their role. They lost their role, and exhibit after exhibit talks about, we've got Defendant's Exhibit I, the Warner Brothers investigation, which describes the star of the show, Ella D. Young, who was close with the family, saying that after Ronnie and Angel found out that their kids would be recast, actually used the words, they would get revenge on Tim Busfield. We've got the affidavit of Chris Ford, Defendant's Exhibit K, which says the same thing, that he, while out at a dinner with an actress and the family, they were upset. They were visibly upset that the boys wouldn't be back on the show. And same thing, she said she'd get him, quote, have his ass, unquote. This entire criminal complaint is making good on that promise. And to address Ms. Brandenburg-Koch's idea of, well, you don't get money from the criminal process. No, it also wasn't their first stop. They got a civil attorney first in California, who then interacted with Warner Brothers. They didn't contact police again until after Warner Brothers in September of last year came out and said, there's nothing behind these allegations. Translate, we're not going to give you any money. Then they went to police. There are other ways in which the complaint mischaracterizes what happened. The idea that Mr. Busfield told these kids to call him Uncle Tim. Both the independent report, Exhibit I, no one ever heard him being called Uncle Tim. There are victims, and they are still these two boys. But they weren't victimized by Tim Busfield. They were victimized by their own parents, who no longer could make money as a lawyer, disbarred, no longer could write bad checks, taking 85.
Okay, let's turn back to the state, Ms. Brandenburg-Koch.
Judge, can you just let me know how much time I have?
10 minutes.
Judge, again, I want to make this very clear of what we are here on today. We are here to see if the court agrees that the defendant is dangerous, and if there are conditions the court can set, which the state's argument is there are none. Defendant's exhibits and argument here don't talk about what this case is about. They're trying to fluff use the parents' history, and that's why these victims, essentially they're saying, are liars and are going to, and they're being coached, even though,
That was my timer for spare
at least it wasn't me.
You did.
I think you did.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. It's okay. There was medical concerns about sexual abuse prior in November of 2024 made by the doctor after seeing the kids in this case. So how this even started was because a doctor in his experience was concerned, not
All right. Give me a second. Let me pull this other video up. What do you guys think so far? What do you think so far? That's the same one. Let's see what the judge has to say. I know he's already out and stuff, but let's see what the judge has to say.
Reports to exhibits and the testimony offered today are reliable for purposes of this decision. The next question is the dangerousness question, the extent to which that information indicates that a defendant may likely pose a threat to the safety of others if released pending trial. I'll back up and note that probable cause was found by the Metropolitan Court judge. We're not set for a preliminary hearing today. I do find that is sufficient for a probable cause finding for today's purposes. So as to the dangerousness question, based on the nature and circumstances of the present offense, noting that this is a crime where the allegations involve criminal sexual contact of minor children in the genital areas, I do find that is inherently dangerous. So I'm satisfied based on those that the state has proven that Mr. Busfield does pose a danger to the safety of others. As to the last question, whether there are any potential pretrial release conditions that would reasonably protect the safety of others, I'll work my way through the F6 factors, first adopting my findings about the nature and circumstances of the present offense. I'll move on to the weight of the evidence. Now, Ms. Brandenburg-Cook is right. It's important to acknowledge the nature of sexual assault cases, and delays in reporting, especially from minor alleged victims, are fairly common. That sort of sexual abuse often occurs in the dark. This situation is a little different in that the allegations involve the defendant being alleged to have committed these acts on a film set. Now, the defendant's presentation, the affidavits from a number of people who worked on that film set, the independent investigation performed by the law firm hired by Warner Brothers, the testimony offered today do not corroborate the allegations offered by the alleged victims in this case. Now, while true, the statement from those children to law enforcement initially and expressly denied that anything occurred, the children then subsequently reported these things. That's not uncommon. As it stands today, based on the limited information I have in front of me, I'll characterize the weight of the evidence against the defendant as neutral at this point in time. As to the defendant's history and characteristics, as included or reflected in Court's Exhibit 1, this defendant exhibits zero criminal history, no misdemeanor or felony history. The state has brought forth a number of allegations over the last 30 years, something of a pattern involving allegations of this defendant committing some sort of sexual contact against post-pubescent women. Now, these allegations have not been vetted by the judicial system for various reasons. There being a civil settlement in one of those, a declined prosecution, or no action taken on the exchange of the defendant engaging in therapy. I understand that given the media attention to this case, that more people may come forward with other allegations supporting this pattern. But at this point in time, it's difficult for the court to put too much weight into those allegations as they've not been vetted by the judicial system. I'm concerned about the allegations of this defendant using his position of power on a film set to advance his own personal motive. But the affidavits offered by other people working on the film set do not show that Mr. Busfield has used or abused that position of power. With regards to the nature and seriousness of the danger posed, I'm very mindful of the higher court's guidance in the Begay case in weighing this defendant's risk of reoffending. But given the lack of a pattern involving children in this case, I think that can be remedied through different conditions of release. For factor E, I don't find that there's been sufficient presentation that this defendant may commit new crimes if released pending trial. There's no evidence of a pattern of criminal conduct. There are no similar allegations involving children in his past. There's no evidence of non-compliance with prior court orders. Rather, this defendant self-surrendered and submitted himself to this court's jurisdiction, demonstrating compliance with the court order for his arrest. There's not been any prior pretrial detention finding. So on the balance, I cannot find that the state has proven by clear and convincing evidence that there are no release conditions that would reasonably protect the safety of any other person in the community. So I am denying the state's motion. I'll take care of that order. That'll be published tomorrow. So Mr. Busfield, I'll set the following conditions of release. You're authorized for release on your own recognizance with the conditions that you appear at all future court settings, do not violate any laws. You'll be supervised by pretrial services here in Albuquerque at a level 2. I'm not going to prohibit your travel. I understand you may not live here, but you will need to report to pretrial services here. You're not to possess any firearms or dangerous weapons. You're not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You must notify the court of your address. You're not to have any contact with the alleged victims or their families, and you're also not to discuss the case with any witnesses. That's what the attorneys and their investigators are there to do, and we can't have you tampering with any of that. And then you need to maintain weekly contact with your attorney in this case. So, Mr. Busfield, do you have any questions for me about what any of those conditions mean?
No, sir.
Okay. So, attorneys, I'll take care of that order tomorrow. Is there anything else the state would request, Ms. Brandenburg?
I would ask for no contact with children under the age of 18.
Oh, yeah, sorry. No unsupervised contact with any minor children in this case. Mr. Dodd, any other conditions you'd request?
No, Your Honor, I would ask just if the court can get that filed through your TCA today so that I can.
Oh, this conditions of release? Yeah.
Yes.
I've already, that'll be filed today. I'll take care of the full detention order tomorrow. And so with that, anything else, state
Not at this time, Your Honor.
and defense?
No, Your Honor, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all. We'll be adjourned.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, the family is all happy. What do you think about that, Mama? Let me unmute you there. Now, Zelmy.
How you doing? Well, I'm not real sure about it. And, I remember when we, just first started having these sexual abuse cases, you know what I'm saying? And this stuff back, I'm kind of old. I would have been in my 20s, I suppose. And at that time, we automatically believed the children. That was sort of like what I was taught to believe, was that the children didn't lie. But as time has come along, and I see many cases where that wasn't true. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because if the children come forward on their own, I'd be more inclined to believe them. You know what I'm saying?
Well, everything that they told in this case made me suspicious. Every single bit of it, with the dad and whatever the dad was trying to do. It just seemed like he was coaching his kids, taking them into the doctor, and you don't know, like that prosecutor kept saying, yeah, but this was the doctor initiated this. The doctor reported that. But you don't know what the dad said to the doctor.
Yeah, and you don't know what the doctor's required. He may be, if a kid comes and tells you about sexual abuse, you're required to report it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they're mandated reporter. Well, Angie here says.
But see, a doctor would be afraid. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they're mandated reporters. They have to. Angie said he took a lie detector and he passed the lie detector test.
I know.
Furthermore, he was seen by 2 different psychologists, experts. And they're not saying that he ever was alone with these children and did this. Basically, what they're saying is that he has groomed them and did whatever he did right in front of everybody, and everybody was just too blind and distracted to see it. Well, this is a case where, I'm sorry, but it sure does look to me like some adults have manufactured this. I don't even think that the kids are saying that it happened.
Well, they didn't at first, but then they come back. But if the daddy was making them hug people, he already had this in his mind.
Yep. Especially if he was telling them to hug every person there. You don't do that. And I think that judge was very careful with his words. And I think
he was
that,
very careful. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'm not much one about kiss assing. Forgive me, Lord. But I'm not. I just ain't. It's not in me to sit there and blow smoke up somebody's hiney, just to give them a big head. I just can't do it. All right. So
It's the same old, same old. It's all about money.
it is.
We wouldn't be where we were if those kids had kept their jobs.
Well, I'm going to read out of the book of John, and we're going to read chapter 5, and we are going to start with verse 39, the scriptures. Search the scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life. And they are they which testify of me. And you will not come to me, that you might have life. I receive not honor from men, but I know you, and you have not the love of God in you. I am come in my Father's name, and you receive me not. If another shall come in his own name, him you will receive. How can you believe which receive honor one of another and seek not the honor that comes from God only? So let me go back and kind of explain that. So, search the scriptures proclaims an imperative command, not a mere suggestion. For in them you think you have eternal life. That should have been translated, you claim to believe the scriptures. So, believe what they say about me. And they are they which testify of me. The entire story of the Bible is Christ and him crucified. And you will not come to me that you might have life. All life is in Christ. To have that life, one must accept what Christ has done at the cross. I receive not honor from men. He sought honor from God alone. That must be our criteria as well. But I know you that you have not the love of God in you. If one is truly saved, one will truly have the love of God. I am come in my Father's name, and you receive me not. that proclaims that the real reason that they did not receive him is because that they did not know the Father, despite their claims. How often does that happen? If another shall come in his own name, him you will receive. Now, this actually speaks of the coming Antichrist, as well as all other false messiahs. Shortly after the rapture of the church, Israel will receive a false messiah, claiming that he is the one for whom that they have long looked, that they've looked forward to coming. They will find to their dismay how wrong they are. See, they think that Jesus never, Jesus wasn't the Savior. They were waiting on the Messiah. And then whenever Jesus came, oh, no, but you're not the one that we thought was coming. We thought there was a king. We thought a king was coming.
Well, the Jews still don't believe in Christ.
That's what I'm saying. Jesus came in on a donkey, waving a palm leaf. He came in as a servant, as a meek and mild servant. And that's not what the Jews were expecting. They were expecting this king, this very wealthy and rich king, and that he would be,
They're still waiting on the Messiah, aren't they?
Yes, they're still waiting on him.
That's
But they're going to accept whenever this Antichrist comes on the scene. He's the one that they're going to accept. He's the one that's going to deceive them and make them think is their Messiah. Or at least that's my understanding of it.
Well, I don't know either. I'm not an expert on the Bible or on religions for that matter.
Me neither. But that's just our understanding. So 44. Can you believe which receive honor one of another? That proclaims that God does not minister to the pride of man, nor modify truth, so as to please it and feed it. And seek not the honor that comes from God only, to seek and receive such honor, which portrays itself in the moving and operation of the Holy Spirit, most of the time will incur the wrath of the religious establishment. Consequently, most preachers seek the honor that comes from men. Do not think that I will accuse you to the Father. There is one who accuses you, even Moses, in whom ye trust. For had you believed Moses, you would have believed me, for he wrote of me. For if ye believe not his writings, how shall you believe my words? Now, bluntly, this tells them to their faces that despite their claims to the contrary, they were, in fact, unbelievers. All the religious machinery was but a show. At heart, they did not believe the Bible any more than the heathen. And honey, that applies today as well. This question proclaims the unity of Christ in the Scriptures. How shall you believe my words? Hallelujah. People don't want to know. They don't want to read the word. They don't want to read the Bible. That's too much. It takes too much time. It takes too much effort. They don't understand it. Well, it don't take no time. We just get out of the habit of it. I get out of the habit of it That's why I'm glad that we have picked it back up for the show. All right. Do we got any prayer requests over here? Let me look and see. Oh, the man Gilbert husband. They now have the video up on YouTube. Is that a different one? Which one? What is she talking about? Is out on YouTube. I'll look at it later. But anyway. All right. Well, thank you, Jesus, for another day, Lord, being able to come together in your name. Jesus, we lift up all of the victims of whatever kind of abuse, everybody who is broken, who needs a healing. We lift them up to you today, Lord. Every single person that's willing to receive your healing, Lord, we just plead your precious blood. We plead the blood of Jesus down over top of all of us. All of us need you, Jesus. I'm so thankful that you loved me before I could love myself. I'm thankful for your favor in my life. I'm thankful for your presence in my life. I'm so thankful. I love you, Lord. I pray that you'll put your hand of protection around about us. I pray that you'll put a hedge of protection around about us, Lord. I pray that you will go before us in whatever storm, whatever fire we're walking into, Lord. I pray that you just grab us by our hand and don't let go. I pray that you'll forgive us for our sins and just point us in the right direction. Keep them doors open, Lord, and help us walk through them. I pray that you'll go with us tonight, Lord, and keep us safe and bring us back tomorrow at the appointed time. And until then, Lord, we'll give you all praise, honor, and glory. In Jesus' name, in Jesus' name. All right, guys. Well, you have.
And amen.
Amen. You got anything else you want to talk about, Mommy, or say?
No, not really.
Well, thanks for being with us tonight.
Oh, thank you. I've been trying to get here for a while, and I just couldn't seem to get it worked out in my system, whatever system I was using. Look.
I see it. That's a nice, fancy, pretty shovel.
I'm going to paint this on it. Well, maybe I got started wrong, but I'm going to paint that on it.
I can't see it. It's blurry. Oh, that card. Yeah. Those are them old Christmas cards.
Oh, I don't know. Is that what it was?
Yeah, I had a whole stack of them. I had a whole bunch of them. Somebody made them 20 years ago.
Oh, well, that's beautiful.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them somewhere.
Well, I probably have them.
And you probably do.
I'm sort of a pack rat, and I keep everything. I've been painting on this one for a while, but I think I got him done. I'm going to hang him by the handle on a nail.
Yeah, it looks great. Look at that.
Yeah, and it's going to hang against a wall like that, you know.
Yes.
I'm just trying to make art. I've decided what I'm trying to do is all the things that I didn't get to do when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing them now.
There you go. There you go. You just make yourself as happy as you can, Mommy.
I'd love to have done all this stuff as a kid.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm living vicariously through my kids. I wasn't able to do any of that sports stuff, and I love it. I wish to God I could have, you know, but I couldn't. So now the only thing I can do is just watch through my kids.
Yeah. Well, maybe you'll get to be in sports one day. You might be a lawyer one day. I think you need to go to law school. I really do.
My mental health couldn't handle it, I'm telling you. But
Well, your boys will be grown and maybe you'll do it. It's never too late to go to school, you know.
I know, but I have barely survived all of the rejection in my life.
Looks to me like you're doing really great right now. These stories you're putting together are good. I enjoyed that last thing.
Well, good. We're going to find
good.
out.
That was a good presentation. You've kind of changed your style.
Mhm. Well, we are maturing. Like everybody, I told you, I've done a whole lot of research. A lot of people who do YouTube channels and other sorts of platforms that have these kinds of channels, like a true crime or whatever, you go through an adjustment period after about a year. Like whenever you're new and you're the new thing, you know, you might get these big arcs where you get a bunch of people and stuff, but you got a lot of, well, I don't know about a lot, but some will just fold. You know, you get, it's ebbs and flows, you know, so you might have a few months where you're doing really good, but then you're going to have a few months where you don't do as good. Somebody sent me a message today and asked me about a couple who are some YouTubers, and they moved. They sold their house and they're trying to move, and they've got GoFundMe's up trying to get people to help pay for, and just all this stuff. And I was like, well, you know, that's what happens. If I had ran out and bought a house at the time that I wanted to, I'd been in the exact same shape.
Well, you're surviving and you're doing good and you're doing something worthwhile.
Well, we just have to get through the maturing. You know, our channel is going to mature, and December and January are historically kind of rough months. And so we've just got to get through the rough parts. And we are, honey. We are. We don't miss a day. We're here. Rain, sleet, shine. It don't matter. We're here. Hillbilly Crime will be on the air.
Well, all right.
All right. We will see you all tomorrow. Peace out, Girl Scout. Bye, Mommy. I love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Can't hide from hillbilly crime. You can't hide from hillbilly crime. You may not know that there's a crew in town. The head hillbillies are making their rounds. Small town whispers loud and clear. The sheriff shot the judge in his chambers chair.
Sheriff got a secret he won't keep. Judge shot dead in his disbelief. A lot of people have some stories to tell. Dog passed away, get the sound of a shotgun shell.
All the secrets spill on down. Voices loud in this old town. From the courthouse to the ground. Rumors fly and they can't be bound.
Neighbors hide behind their blinds. Whisper tales of troubled minds. Skeletons covering the mountainside. A treacherous reality in the pines.
Winter reveals the hidden lies. Moonlight couldn't mask the cries. Shadows caught in sunlit skies. There's no cover, no disguise. All the